How many hearts does an octopus have?
3.
Correct.
What? Saffron, Saturn, Aphrodite, Apollo, Aries, carbon dioxide, the equal sign.
I'm Grant from Screen Rant. It's great to see you again, Jen. I was actually literally just rewatching Quiz Lady before this interview, and it was my third time watching it. I love this film. It is.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I mean, thank you for making such a great movie. I said it to you before. It's still, I think, the feel-good movie of the year, and it really makes me laugh. And so I'd love to hear, I'm so excited that you got an Emmy nomination for this. How does it feel, getting that level of recognition for this film?
I mean, it's incredible. We're so proud of this movie, and the whole time we were making it, everyone involved was sort of like, I can't believe we're making this. Like, it feels like the type of movie that we don't make anymore. And everyone was just so excited, and we felt like this little engine that could. In the world of streaming, you never really know, if it will reach people and how it does. And so just the idea that it's getting awards recognition and, just hearing more people are finding it is just so sweet and lovely. And it just really warms my heart.
Well, it's really well deserved, people finding it and giving it all that praise. And I'd actually love to hear what's been your favorite thing that people have complimented the movie for, whether it's the jokes, the tone, the characters. What's been your favorite takeaway from people's response to it?
I mean, I really love, not just because I'm talking to you right now, but I really love when people are like, it's the feel-good movie of the year. Like, it really makes me so happy because that's all I want to do is make movies that make people feel better and that people want to rewatch. That's what I love about movies. Like, I'm such a movie nerd, and I have my comfort watches. And so the idea that Quiz Lady could be a comfort watch for someone else, there's no higher praise.
I was literally laughing out loud this morning at some of the beats still. So even Sandra Oh getting hit by the truck at the very beginning, just it kills me still. So it really is a great comfort rewatch. And I'd love to talk about Mr. Linguini. It's a joke that runs throughout the movie, but like, how did you go about landing on this running bit of him being such an old dog and having survived all these years and being such a central plot point?
It was so funny. So Mr. Linguini really evolved as a character throughout the development of the script. Where initially, so Mr. Linguini is based on my friend's dog, Aggie, who she's 12 now, I think, but she's a black pug, and she's had like a salt and pepper face basically since she was like 4. And pugs just have such old spirits. All they want to do is lounge. That's literally why they were invented, was to just be lapdogs. And so initially, Anne just had this dog that was based on Aggie. It was just this old pug named Mr. Linguini. And then as we were sort of working on the script together, me and Awkwafina, Sandra, and our director, Jessica Yu, we sort of just discovered this idea that it would be really funny if Jenny thought of Mr. Linguini as her dog. And it did seem like something that she would do, is just sort of like get a puppy on a whim and then immediately be like, oh, I can't take care of this puppy, and just sort of foist it onto Anne. And so when we came up with that idea, we just sort of naturally realized like that would make Mr. Linguini in his 20s, which is technically possible. I think the oldest dog in the world was 24. And we were just like, you know what, we'll just go with it. And it was fun to just find little ways to sort of poke fun at how old we've sort of backed ourselves into making him.
No, I love that you found a way to sort of almost break the fourth wall in that sense, where you're like, how old is this dog?
Yeah.
It's a great bit throughout the movie. And so I remember talking with you a little bit about it before, but since you just mentioned it, working with Awkwafina, Sandra, and Jessica, I'd love to hear, this movie does such a great job at Asian American representation. And I would love to hear how much of that was already in the script, and then how much of that came from working with everybody that I just mentioned.
So it all came from working with them. So when I initially wrote this script, I didn't specify any race or ethnicity for the family, because I was just thinking like, I'm writing this script. There's very little chance that it'll ever get made. And the only way that it will ever get made is if we get two incredible actors to play these two sisters. And so I just left it completely open. And then Awkwafina was the first person we sent it to, and she immediately signed on, which was incredible. And so that began the process of wanting to make these characters feel authentically Asian American, not just these are white characters played by Asian American women. And so we just started talking about sort of how to do that. And then we had this very magical time in London where after everyone was on board, Sandra and Jessica were both working on separate projects in London, but they had the same week off. And so they asked Awkwafina and I to just come to London. And then we spent like 4 days just together in a room, reading through the script and talking about it and talking about our families. And in that sort of process, that was very much when we were figuring out, okay, like, what are the dynamics of this family and what, we were trying to figure out, like, is it a Korean mom, a Chinese dad? And, we ultimately settled on Chinese mom, Korean dad. And it also just added such a fun, like such a more like richness to the script because, we had it in there already that they were going on this journey to California and that Jenny had this dream of California. And then to add the additional layer of, these are two Asian women who were raised in central Pennsylvania where they were probably, one of the only like non-white families around. And then in California, they had their cool Korean cousins who lived near Koreatown and like had, such a more diverse community and then therefore like a bigger sense of belonging. And so just adding that element to Jenny's sort of dream of California just makes it so much richer. And so it was really cool to just find those moments of how to enhance what was already in the script by just making it more authentic.
Well, I love that you were able to find that with them because, like you say, it really does make the characters richer. It leads to also some great jokes. I mean, Jenny trying to make excuses during the audition killed me, and especially as you cut to the guy in the background just shaking his head at the saying not being Chinese. It was so good. So in talking about Jenny and Anne's parents, I'd actually love to know, was there ever a bigger role for them in this movie? Especially, I mean, we know their father died, at some point in the past, but their mom is obviously sort of a catalyst for this whole story. Was there ever a bigger role at any time or at any version of the script?
No, she was always a very off-screen character because we really loved the idea that it was just like, that's how bad their mom is. Like, it's just like, you don't even really think that you can call her for help, but then you're like, no, let's call her for help. Like, she'll help us this time. And then she just immediately shuts you down and you're just like, well, yep, the mom is bad.
No, that's good though. It keeps the focus on the sisters and their beautiful relationship. So I love that. Now, another character I wanted to talk about is Terry, Will Ferrell's character. And, a lot of times in movies like this, we often see, don't meet your heroes because, especially when they're celebrities, because they end up being the antithesis of what they show on screen. And I'm curious if you always had Terry as just being this pure heart who really inspires Annie when she's actually on the show.
Yeah, so the evolution of Terry was very interesting because I initially wrote this script to be about Jeopardy. And so it was always, going to Jeopardy. And then to give you a sense of how long I worked on the script, initially it was Alex Trebek and then he sadly passed away. And so then we made it into Ken Jennings. And then, we wound up not getting the rights for Jeopardy. So I had to create a new game show in a very short amount of time. But it had sort of always been in the back of my head. So I was very pleased to do it. And the best part about it was I had always been thinking, if I wind up having to fictionalize this game show, it'll be so great because then we can make the host whoever we want. And Will was already attached as a producer on the project. And so when I started breaking out the new game show, he expressed interest in wanting to play the host, which was just the most incredible news I've ever received in my life. And, we were just talking about this character and we thought it would be really fun to sort of do the opposite of Alex Trebek, where it's like, Alex Trebek has this you want to impress him. Like he seems so smart and he seems like he does know all the answers and you just want to feel cool in front of him. And we just thought it'd be cool if Terry was the complete opposite. Like Terry is just like openly, blown away by how smart everybody is because he has no idea about any of the answers and that he just loves meeting people and loves talking to people. And so, yeah, he just always was this very, very sweet man. And so we tried to sort of bury it a little bit where it's like when she first meets Terry, just in the nature of they're about to go on stage, it's a very like small interaction. She sort of embarrasses herself and we don't necessarily know, is Terry how he appears or is this a don't meet your hero situation? And then you get the scene in the bow tie hallway, which is one of my favorites.
Oh, it's such a beautiful sequence, that one. And I'm glad that you avoided the Don't Meet Your Heroes theme because Annie needed that extra push. And it worked out great. So in another interesting flip, I've grown up with Holland Taylor since George of the Jungle and Two and a Half Men. And I love that she's the crotchety old neighbor. And then right when you think she's giving good life advice, she just like upends it and it's like happiness isn't real. And so that's another one I'd love to hear. Was there ever a version where she actually did offer Anne some good inspiration, or was she always going to go with the happiness isn't real approach to life?
Yeah, Francine was always the ghost of Christmas future for Anne. So she was always a very crotchety, cynical woman who was always going to give this really terrible advice. But I love George of the Jungle and Legally Blonde. Like I love Holland Taylor. She's incredible. And so when we got her for the role, it was so incredible because the thing about Francine is like you get the sense of, especially Holland Taylor's Francine, you get the sense that like it's not that she's just some like shut in and like she, doesn't have like the energy to go out and deal with the world. It's like she's this very like vibrant, like intense woman, but she just is like, I'm not interested in any of that. It's all bad. And so Holland Taylor added such a layer to Francine of just like, yeah, just like a real ball buster. It made her like kind of scary. I wouldn't want to mess with her.
No, definitely not. And I mean, she does that role so well in everything she's in. So I'm glad that you were able to get her for this. And I'd also love to hear about the Pee Wee Herman, Paul Reubens bit in the movie. This obviously came out shortly after he passed. But I'd love to hear about writing that specific joke and approaching him with the idea of, hey, are you going to be okay with us saying you're Alan Cumming for this whole movie?
Yeah, I know. It was so funny. So that was another kind of script save in the moment. I don't know. Where initially it was written that Francine loved Ray Donovan, and it was going to be Liev Schreiber, but he was not available. And so I was just thinking, like, how do we make this? How do we preserve the structure of this joke without having it be completely reliant on, who the person is? And so that was where the idea came from, to have it be that Francine was wrong about who her celebrity crush was, that she had a picture of someone and then saw someone else. And the first doppelganger pairing I could think of was Alan Cumming and Paul Reubens. For so long, I've always been like, wait, which one is Nightcrawler? Like, I always forget which one is which. And so that was the first one I thought of. I put that into our table read draft. Thankfully, it got a laugh. So we were like, okay, great. The joke is approved. And so then it became, how do we get Paul Reubens? And I mean, he was so lovely, and it just, now it's just like, how could that moment be anything but Paul Reubens coming around? Because especially, this movie is about the power of TV to comfort people and to really just bring joy to people's lives, particularly lonely children. And so the fact that we have Paul Reubens in this movie just really, it just feels so cosmically right. And to get to work with him was a dream come true, even though he was just there for one day. It was our first day of shooting even. But he was so incredible and just, yeah, another instance of you might think don't meet your heroes, but he was so cool and so wonderful. And so we were so honored to have him as part of the movie.
I'm glad that he lived up to the image he put out there, because he certainly seemed like a true sweetheart. So I'm sure I'm almost out of time, so I have a few quick questions before I let you go. The first is, I remember the first time we talked and you mentioned the original concept for this came about because your brother wanted to get on Jeopardy, and I'm curious if he's had any success yet in getting on that show.
No, I'm like, what can we do? Maybe if we win the Emmy, I don't know. I'm like, how do we get him on there? Yeah, he's still in the contestant pool, waiting for that call.
Well, hopefully that Emmy win pushes him there, because it sounds like if he inspired you to write this, then he's got something to him to be on that show. Yeah. Another question. I know that you also had a part in writing Totally Killer, and I had a blast with that movie. And so many slashers get sequels that find a way to really, especially high concept ones like this. And I'm curious if there is any sort of talks or rumblings in your head of trying to make a sequel happen to it.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I there have not been talks, but I mean, I love Nahnatchka Khan, who directed Totally Killer. She's incredible. And so I would work with her to the ends of the earth. So if she wanted to do a sequel, I would be so thrilled to get in there, because yeah, I mean, with Totally Killer, I mean, no spoilers, click away if you don't want a spoiler, but I'm like, there is an extra time machine out there. And you've got a lot of kids back in the 80s who were sort of messed up inadvertently by it. So, there's definitely ripe territory for a sequel, but yeah, I mean, that was just such a fun world to play in, and collaborating with Sasha and David, the other two writers on it. I mean, it was just I love that movie. It's so fun. It's
so good. I was so happy that I got to do the junket for it and everything, because I was like, oh, so fun. I want to talk to everybody for this. What for my final question then, what else do you have coming up that you are really looking forward to putting out there?
So I am now working on a script that I will direct. It's been so fun, being on set for Hocus Pocus 2 and Quiz Lady and The Tomorrow War. I was on set writer for that. I've had all of these experiences of just really being on set every day and getting to shadow directors unofficially and learn so much. And so yeah, I'm really excited about that next phase of my career, is taking the director's chair.
I love to hear that. I was honestly thinking of that while watching this. I was like, man, she should direct. I feel like she's seeing your filmography too. I was like, she's got a lot of experience. She's ready. And so what can you tell me? What can you tell me about it? Is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it what can you tell me?
Yeah. So it's a horror comedy. A little bit different from Totally Killer in tone. I almost said tonally killer. But yeah, it's sort of a contained horror comedy, because my favorite thing is just, giving people really fun characters and just giving them the room to play in those characters. And so it's an ensemble horror comedy that I'm super excited about.
That's awesome. That sounds great. I love good contained ensemble horror comedies. I mean, Werewolves Within was one of my favorite of the past few years. And so I look forward to seeing your take on that genre. So with that, then I guess all the questions I have, Jen. So thank you so much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it. And I got my fingers crossed for you for that Emmy, because you really do deserve it for Quiz Lady.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was so great talking to you again.
How can I ever thank you? Maybe like a drink later?
Well, I'm married. And gay.
Why'd you have to say 2 reasons?